Welcome to the CSO Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Harald, the CEO and curator of the Futur Institute. And in this episode, we are going to show you a recording from Davos, where we have been hosting the Futur House. And during the week, we had an event called Sustainable Investment Forum. And we welcome participants for this special panel, which included Elena Morettini from Globant, Heine from IntegrityNext, and Julian Fieres from ZF. I hope you enjoy the episode. Now we have a panel of esteemed speakers, which are from the corporate world, looking at the role of CSOs, but also the impact of corporates, and most likely also the challenges. I wanted to start to introduce our panelists and let them introduce themselves, ideally, to say one or two words, what are they doing, and what company they are with. Elena, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everybody. Elena Morettini. I'm actually the global head for sustainable business in Globant. Globant is a technology company born in Argentina 20 years ago, initially a unicorn. Today with 30,000 people and about 60 offices all over the world. So I'm actually not the corporate side of the company. We are the technology provider to accelerate sustainability with every type of client and business.
Hello, good morning. My name is Heine. I am the Chief Customer and Sustainability Officer of a company called IntegrityNext. IntegrityNext is a supply chain sustainability platform. So we help organizations, mainly the buying side of companies, so procurement and supply chain, to make their supply chains more sustainable and gather the needed information out of their tier one suppliers, but also deeper in the supply chains. Many supply chains are pretty deep and unknown, intransparent. So we help them to gather this information to all kind of sustainability in each topics, really, from carbon footprint to child labor, other human rights aspects and environmental protection, like hazardous substances and so on. And with that, companies can comply with this rising tide of regulation, which we observe mainly in Europe now. So there's a lot of data needed and a lot of, a big lack of data for most organizations. And this is what we help with. We have now, after over 8 years with the platform live, we have over 2 million companies, mainly suppliers, participating on that platform. So when a new customer joins, then they typically have like 30 to 50% of their suppliers already on the platform across many industries in all the countries of the world, so to say. And this really helps to gather that information.
Julian.
All right, then also a warm welcome. Good morning from my side. My name is Julian Fieres. I'm the Vice President and Head of Strategy, Sustainability and Digitalization at ZF Group. If you're not familiar with us, we are the third largest automotive supplier, 43 billion euros in revenue, 170,000 employees. And within the vertical of electric drivetrains and still combustion technology drivetrains, I'm part of the leadership team and leading this overall horizontal organization that encompasses product strategy, M&A, digital and sustainability. So CSO, but in a bit of a broader function. Happy to
Interesting role.
Yeah. It's in Germany we say lots of challenges, lots of honor.
Master of disaster.
Master of disaster. Yeah.
I stay with you with that role because you are in an interesting industry, automotive, which has a transition by itself, and then plus the digital transition, which you're also leading, and now going into sustainability. The word transition I don't really like because that's another 30 years, and we don't have that time. How do you deal with the complexity and with time? What can you achieve before this decade is out, the next 5 years? What's sort of on your agenda, and what's some of the pain points maybe that you can share?
Yeah. So in order to answer that, I think it's important that everybody understands a bit of who we are and how we became who we are. So the company was founded in 1915 as the producer of gear sets. So the DNA of the company is the production of gear sets, which later developed into automatic transmissions for cars. It's our top product. And within my vertical, which is 11 billion revenue, still more than 80% of my revenue comes from products that are coupled to the combustion engine or hybrid combustion engine. That means my portfolio of products in the next 5 to 6 years is completely flipping. Yeah, from today, almost 20% electric to more than 60% electric in 5 years. And in one of our key markets, which is Europe, if no policy change happens, some of my top runner products will simply have a premature end of life, which is not a technical end of life and not a consumer demand end of life, it's a regulatory end of life. So your question on transition, I don't like that word. I also don't like evolution because that takes part over 10,000s of years. What we're seeing is a disruption, if you put it that way. And it's a perfect wave of energy and geopolitical uncertainty, which is top of the agenda. We are a global company, 28 plants in my purview globally, with logistic streams from China to Europe, from Europe to the US, and everything in between. Sometimes logistic streams that we are not even aware of happening. So scope 3 downstream is a challenge. Yeah? So you got the geopolitical and energy uncertainty, you got the policy uncertainty in Europe, and you got an increased economic / trade conflict that is ramping up coming from China. So you asked what's on top of the agenda. On top of the agenda is how to manage an almost complete portfolio pivot while taking the people with us and not losing employment in the key markets, which is a big challenge. On top of the agenda is how to fulfill sustainability regulations with good data that we can stand behind and over-fulfill it because our customers are pushing us hard to do that. Some customers, 100% net zero delivery from all plants. When I say all plants, I mean North America and China included. Yeah. And point 3, how do we still stay relevant when the share of software and digital value add in my products is basically doubling by the year? So these 3 things are on top of my agenda, and none of them is a revolution, and none of them is an evolution. All of them are disruption. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to come to you said already scope 3 to the supplier side. How many suppliers do you have?
So just for our vertical, it's a bit more than 6,000. Yeah. If you take an average transmission, yeah, you have more than 5,000 parts. So you can multiply that. It's an n times n complexity that you simply cannot manage. Yeah, right. So we're focusing on A suppliers, B suppliers. We're focusing on the products that we can really control, and basically setting a baseline, right? So can you today, I don't know what companies we have in the room today, but can you honestly say that you have the PCFs and LCAs for your top runner products under control? If the answer is no, we don't even have to discuss the amount of suppliers. If your top runners are not managed well, then goodbye. Yeah?
Nick, you know first the acronyms he just used. I don't, so you can maybe explain them.
Sorry.
And also,
I do.
and our viewers on the screen. Yes. And how does IntegrityNext help the supply side?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is exactly our business. The things you mentioned, the last. So, when a company joins us, so their buying side, or we mainly work with procurement, supply chain role, but also the CSOs, because they're kind of orchestrating everything. But the people that really need to execute what we do, this is more the procurement. So the project happens more there. So, I mean, a couple thousand is pretty normal, especially in manufacturing, high tech, and so on. But we also have customers which come up to 100K suppliers. Yeah, accounts payable records, you need to say. So that's slightly a different thing. Nevertheless, I mean, there is legislation out there which really requires to look at all of them and at least get a good idea about the potential sustainability risk and also opportunities behind it. And this is what we help with. So we really help this to scale, because this is a fundamental problem of procurement organizations, that they day-to-day work with thousands of companies as suppliers, and that needs to go hand in hand, because on-time delivery is in your industry an important topic. So you need to work very closely with these suppliers. And so I am personally working in supply chain and procurement since over 20 years now. I'm more on the supplier relationship management side in the past. And it was always companies were focusing on say the top spend suppliers. So like Pareto, 80-20, it's not like this. It's more like 5% of the suppliers represent 80 to 90% of the money that companies spend for goods and material and services. So they focus on those. But if you want to really comply with regulation, if you want to make sure there is no reputational risk with us, people identify child labor in your supply chain, or so mica in the coating, or cobalt in the batteries, or the carbon footprint is not what people expect. Then it doesn't matter if it is a small supplier or not. So you really had to get your arms around this huge mass of suppliers, and typically companies, especially if you're structured in different business units and so on, and many companies are pretty complex, then you don't sometimes even know who you buy from. So this is where we step in and bring this transparency in the tier one, which means the direct business partners, the suppliers, but also behind that, and then gathering all the ESG data, which is relevant for reducing carbon footprint, for preventing child labor, modern slavery, and other aspects in your products.
Thank you.
Just the two abbreviations: PCF, product carbon footprint, total emissions of the product at the end. What have you actually delivered to the customer's front door in terms of emissions? And LCA life cycle assessment, more than just the carbon perspective and more than just shipping to the customer gate, but the full life cycle, as it says. Sorry for talking gibberish apparently.
Elena, you have this dual role that you are working on sustainability, but you're also working as a software company helping some of the corporates. So explain as sort of a closing statement for our quick episode here. How do you help corporates? How do you work how do you help the CSOs in their role?
Thank you. I'll try to be very short, although everything that we've touched is today of fundamental importance if we really want to attain a quantification of our impact on planet, people, and development. So I think that everything that you said is fundamental to understand, that needs to be quantified. Otherwise, we have no means to understand what we are really impacting, especially, unfortunately, in negative terms. And going back to your question, I think that our role in technology, going back to an initiative of the European Union, which is that of twin transition, means that basically you cannot do sustainability without digitization and vice versa, because otherwise you would be repeating the same journey twice. So now if we bring that concept, which is not a new one, a next step into the AI reinvention moment, we're getting reorganized in terms of industry so that we can supply the AI needed per specific industry. Of course, we need to take into account the energy source. So as much as we did for cryptos and analyzing everything about the energy that went into there, we need to do exactly the same for AI, because I'm sure that everybody has noticed, but AI has basically unlashed and freed the whole discussion on nuclear that had been hidden for 30 years. I don't want to say in favor or against, but I mean, that whole discussion was basically brought back to the table in New York as if it had always been there. And it hadn't been there. We were all very much ashamed to touch the topic for the past 30 years. So what I mean is that to be sustainable all the way and sustainable by design, we really need to make sure that we know where our energy is coming from. So in technology, that for us is a must, and it's somehow one of our purposes.
Fantastic. We have more to say. Any closing? What are you looking forward to in this year? When we are back in Davos next year, what has happened in a positive way that we will celebrate next year? So, well, I just made the question up. So, what is something, maybe a nut you're cracking, staying in some of the theme?
I mean, you already positioned the question to end in a positive answer, which is very psychologically well formulated. But what it feels like a bit in the moment when an earthquake is happening, all the way before the continental plates, there's friction and they're overlapping, but they just build the friction and it's not yet released. That's how it feels right now. And that friction is a political friction, it's an energy transition friction, it's a digitalization friction, it's a socio-political friction. If you look at elections coming up, Germany, Europe, etc., pp. And in 2025, this friction will be released somehow, right? And I think when we come to December of this year, hopefully the companies that are in this room have found their answers to whatever type of earthquake that we're going to see and are actually coming out stronger, or the earthquake that we're anticipating is not as it has been forecasted. So in December, we're looking each other in the eye, and we've secured jobs in Europe. We've managed to keep value chains where they should be. We have created socio-political support for a green transition that didn't result in far-right parties being elected all over Europe. And we have a company policy in the European green transition that makes us as Europeans a joint winner. That's something that I'm looking forward to celebrate, hopefully.
Thank you. We can do shorter.
I'm an optimist, as you know.
Fantastic.
Actually, when you ask the question, there are so many things in my mind, but let me focus on one thing. So, being a relatively young company, I also observe how the network is evolving, because this also shows us how many are really part of that journey, not transition. And because it pushes the synergy, right? Because you said that you don't want to do this like 10 times for 100 times for your customers. So in the first 7 years of our organization, the network grew to 1 million suppliers on the platform. So it took us 7 years for the first million, and it took us just another year for another million, so to double it to 2 million. So we see the pace really coming up and accelerating. So yeah, kind of that is the target for 2025. And yes, there are a lot of hurdles and challenges to tackle, but this really makes me think very positive, because when people collaborate and come together on one platform, then it really releases synergies and speeds up. So that's my goal for this year.
If I can be idealistic, I think that what I hope we will all see is a sustainable reconstruction there where it's needed. So where we need to reconstruct what has been destroyed for different reasons, we will do it in a sustainable way. So that is sustainable by design and everything that we need to rebuild or put together again.
Thank you all. This has been a quick insight into the conversations which happen in Davos and at the Future O House. Thank you, the esteemed panelists, and having this impromptu episode to share with the world what this conversation is about, that the Magic Mountains here have actually valid conversations and deep conversations with the right people at the right time, at the right place. Thank you all, and thank you for being at the show and listening to this episode. Thank you. I hope you liked this CSO panel that we recorded during the Sustainable Investment Forum in the Future O House Davos during World Economic Forum. If you're interested in similar episodes, content of the Future O House, or events that we run together and for Chief Sustainability Officers, please click in the link in the description. I hope to see you next week for another recording of the CSO Impact Podcast. Thank you.